book, it is definitely an interesting situation because not only, as I mentioned, is there a kind of familiarity with the challenges of rebuilding Israel, which we definitely relate to. Not so much us, but the people who came to Israel 2 generations ago or 3 generations ago, who came during our grandparents' or great grandparents' time. Those people who rebuilt Israel found tremendous challenges politically, obviously, because it was part of the Turkish Empire at the time, and local Arab population was not super supportive, obviously, of, to put it mildly, of Israel building and Jewish people rebuilding their lives in the Holy Land. But there was also economic challenges because at the time, I mean, trains were still relatively new. Um, Most of the commerce was done by ship, was done by, maritime commerce, and it took months to get supplies to Israel. And so it wasn't that far removed from the way it was for Ezra and Nehemiah, for those guys. So there is a feeling about this, and we're going to talk about it on Wednesday night because we're going to talk about Israel's history on the Wednesday night classes in the future. There are some definitely interesting parallels to what those people lived with when they were rebuilding Israel in the early 1900s, and we have photos of it. That's the interesting thing, of course, is that we don't have photos. We don't have photos of Ezra and Nehemiah, but we do have photos of these early Zionists rebuilding Jerusalem, very much like, again, they didn't have to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, but they did have to rebuild the synagogues, and they had to rebuild the institutions that for most part had not been there or had been destroyed. And it wasn't going back 2,000 years and necessarily just rebuilding those things, but it was rebuilding infrastructure that had, for the most part, either not been there or had been gone for a very, very long time. And of course, also rebuilding a Jewish army, a Jewish self-defense, originally a Jewish self-defense group, which we call the Haganah, which later became the Israeli army. But to rebuild not just the physical structure, the infrastructure, but also to create the institutions and the systems that would allow for this to happen. Something to think about as we read this. So we're reading from chapter 4. And Judith, would you take us through this? And Judith is preparing right now for the women's retreat. I have some more work to do on that when I get back home, too. Judith, don't worry. I will
I'm not worried.
be hard at work, diligently making sure that all the work is done for that, because it's going to be a wonderful weekend for the women who are taking part in the women's retreat.
It's justice.
Judith,
All right.
are you reading?
I'm ready.
Wait a second. We can't hear you. This whole time we couldn't hear the people. Folks, did you notice that? We haven't heard anything. Hold it 1 second. Oh my God. This is wonderful. You've been talking and they haven't heard. Yeah, that's one. I think they heard because I texted you.
I can hear you, Judith. I guess they
You
just
can
can't
hear me?
Yeah.
Isn't that nice? Because I
don't do
I can hear you. I don't know why. Maybe they just can't hear us.
yeah, maybe they can't hear us in the place, but we can hear each other. I don't understand how Zoom works.
Yeah, guys, we can't hear you. That's crazy. So hold it 1 second. I can hear you now. I mean, we
You
just
hear
need
me
to
now?
make sure the sound comes out in here.
Can you hear me now? No, Punchy.
Wait, yeah, that's true.
Lori, that means we could talk about them.
We can.
Was that Glory?
I can hear you, John. John, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Then it went away. John's at the at
Was that the place?
yeah.
So we could talk about him now too. Woo!
I told my wife to shoot it back up. I hear you.
Came on and
Yeah, we can hear you
All right.
now through the computer, but we can't. Is Mike still here?
Turn the volume up.
Give me 1 second. Mike's gonna try to get Mike because we can only hear you through our computer, but that means I can't talk while you're
That sound.
okay. But yes, Judith, I'm working on making sure all the materials are there.
Okay,
The
good.
women's retreat.
And you can feel free to add if you see something that looks interesting.
Yeah, thankfully Mike is here on the premise. Mike, we can't hear him in here. We can't hear the people who are on Zoom here. Yes, I have the speaker in there is on, but not in here. That was also turned off though, Mike. All right. I think Mike's got it.
We used to play with that speaker and mess with people. That was fun because you can put it in the bathrooms.
Yeah.
Which
All right.
we got all fancy and high tech.
So Mike, can you figure out what was wrong? Mike Carlin?
Not yet.
Yeah, you did. It's working now. Oh, that was just Mike. He can talk. It's amazing. He can just make himself talk from in there. Yes.
The
Yeah.
voice of God.
No, they're actually positive. No, it's adjustable. Yes, the hat is adjustable. John was asking about the hat for Chargers game. Yes, it's an adjustable hat. By the way,
That's
I
all he
had to
talks
go
about.
on Facebook every hour to take down all the hatred. I mean, it's unbelievable. Oh yeah, over 100 comments that I've had to hide. John knows he's seen them. If you go on our Mike, did you figure it out yet?
No.
Wait, what comments?
Yeah, it's confusing.
All right. So what I'm going to do, just while we're waiting, 1 sec, I'm going to share with you so you can see with your own eyes the beauty of social media. Social media is such a beautiful, beautiful place. I'm going to show you how beautiful it is. It's a beautiful world to inhabit. I'm joking. I'm going to show you. I shouldn't.
Yes, you should.
I shouldn't give this. So here's the post. So much going on in our temple. Okay, ready? So here's the comments. It appears that there's only 4 comments, right? Really nice. But as you can see, there's 95 comments.
Which post?
This is the Chargers Community Day.
We can't see it.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm sharing the wrong page. Here you go. Here we go.
Oh, the hat.
It's that hat. See, it's adjustable. It's this kind of hat. It's this kind of adjustable. It does. It does. All right. So here's the hat. 95 comments. So these are all people. No, not all, but you know some of them. Here we go. Now let's look at all the comments hidden. Ready?
Oh, I found it.
You did? What was wrong, Mike?
The switch box, it says to Mixer for Zoom. That wasn't switched over.
Switch.
Okay, here you go. All right, so I'm gonna turn this off. All right, so let's look at some of these wonderful comments. Oh, it's so beautiful.
Oh
This
my
remember,
God.
this remember is Jewish Community Day. Uh,
Nice.
uh, the USS Liberty. Wow. Uh, yep. So this one was one of my favorite ones.
Oh, I love that one.
This one is a good one. That's pretty wild. I know. Well, I just yeah. So that's what I have had to do over the last 4 days is go on the internet constantly taking that stuff down every few hours. So I wake up and that's what I got to do. And then, two more times during the day, I've got to get up and do that. And by the way, that's a paid boost. I've had to, I've had to invest to make sure people would get to see the stuff. And then that comes up on people's stuff. And then I get that. So that's beautiful. That's Facebook. That's great business, right? Because Facebook basically, I don't want to get into it, but, there you go. Um, so let's get back to chapter 4. So this is what happens after the reaction of what happens to the local people who live there. We talked about the Samaritans, the Arabs, again, are mentioned here, and you get and you can see some of the local people how they're dealing with this. Uh, you can hear us all right? Yes.
Hello, y'all can hear us?
We can hear, and you can, when we can hear you. Yeah, no
All
worries.
righty.
So here we go, Judith, take away.
When Sanballat and Tuvia and the Arabs, the Ammonites, and the Ashdodites heard that healing had come to the walls of Jerusalem, that the breached parts had begun to be filled, it angered them very much. And they all conspired together to come fight against Jerusalem and to throw it into confusion.
Yeah, so they weren't just upset. They didn't just voice their concern. It says they came up to fight. And the group keeps getting bigger. At first it's the Samaritans and, some locals. Now it's the Arabs, the Ammonites, again, who live in modern day Jordan. And now it's the Ashdodites, which is another way of saying the people that have Philistine origin. Remember, Ashdod was one of those cities. Again, it's like 10 miles from Gaza. It's right on the coast, right where those Philistine cities are. And again, those Philistine cities, some of them are in Israel, like Ashdod and Ashkelon, and some of them are in Gaza, like Gaza those cities that were the Philistine cities were on the coast. So these are Philistines. So like it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. The group of people who don't like who don't like this, and again are not happy with what's happening. So here's yeah. So this is one of the so this is this no at this point the Arabs are like a minority in the area. They're like there's some Arabs in the area, right? The Arabs don't flood into this area of Israel until literally the 7th century, not until like 1,000 years later. It's not like there were no Arabs. These are Arabs, but it's very rare. It's not their territory. So at the time, the people who would have kept them out of incursions are Judeans and Philistines and Ammonites and all these other people that are inhabiting the area around Judah and into Jordan, modern day Jordan. Remember, it wasn't called Jordan, but those areas are keeping Arabs from making those incursions. So I know today we just hear Arabs. They're all Arabs, but they weren't then. And that's when they come in. They don't come in. The Arabs don't come in until they are spreading Islam and kind of like conquering the world. And again, they did it by conquering people and then converting them. So how many of those people are actually Arab by ethnicity? We're starting to discover now. We've only discovered it since we've had DNA tests. So like if you do DNA tests on Lebanese people, a lot of Lebanese people we've now found are not Arab. They're actually Phoenician. They were the people who were conquered by the Arabs. And we've done tests on Palestinians. And guess what? A lot of them are Judean. They're Jewish. They're not Arab, or they're part Arab, but the majority of their DNA is Judean in some cases. So yeah, not all these people became Arab. We call them Arab, and like a lot of them are Arab, but they're not all Arab because they didn't come in until, again, now we're talking 1,300 years ago. It's not like it was yesterday, but they weren't the original inhabitants. I mean, they know that. They're not, the Arabs don't say they were the original inhabitants of the area, but when they conquered the area, made it Muslim, obviously a lot of them mixed with the population, but how much we didn't know until 20 years ago, 30 years ago. We started doing DNA tests on these communities. And again, some of them turns out are not that Arab. Okay. And I think, by the way, as we learn more and more about DNA and are able to kind of, the more we know about subgroups of DNA, the more we learn about it, the more we're going to say, yeah, but those people aren't Arab, they're Syrian and they were, Aramean, we don't, it'll take time, but eventually we'll say, yeah, well, the people in Syria are 20% Arab, but they're actually 40%, Aramean. So they'll get more and more specific. Look, the reason that we know about Jews is because Jews are obsessed with DNA and genealogy. So we actually are spending a lot of time and money trying to figure this stuff out because we're fascinated by it. But most groups are kind of catching up to this, and eventually you'll know what percentage, whatever you are, it'll get more and more detailed. It's still getting there. All right. I guess you could say, what difference does it make? Because we've already shown that everyone has common DNA anyway. So, all right. So these people, the local people, are not happy. But again, the fact that it's just like, these groups are now, they're identified. They're more identified now. So we go through this book. All right. So here's what we did.
Because of them, we prayed to our God and set up a watch over them day and night. Judah was saying, the strength of the basket carrier has failed, and there is so much rubble. We are not able ourselves to rebuild the wall.
So yeah, it sounds like he's quoting something, which is why it's in quotes, but it's like, this is what we said, right? This is like probably like a song or some kind of, like work song, if you will. It's more of a lament, obviously, but you can see that they're praying, right? They're praying. It's one of the things they did, but they didn't just pray. They did something about it, right? It says again, they set up a watch, a mishmar, right? So they guarded and protected themselves, and we assume that's militarily, right? These people were armed, and they were made sure that the workers would not get attacked. The people who were doing this work would not get attacked. Again, very similar to what the Jews did when they were rebuilding Israel and building kibbutzim in the north and building, whatever part of Israel where people came. They set up guard towers. Some of those guard towers are still there. Some of those guard towers have been dedicated because they were sites of massacres and tragedies where, some of these guards would be overrun, by people who didn't like them. So, yeah, it happened 100 years ago too. So let's keep going.
And our foes were saying, before they know or see it, we shall be in among them and kill them and put a stop to the work. When the Jews living near them would arrive, they would tell us time and again, from all the places where you shall come back to us.
Okay, so let's explain why there's so many little notes here. This is a translation, and again, I'm sure there's different translations of this in different Bibles, but essentially what they're saying is there's some kinds of idiom that's used here. So, for example, the words the words eser pa'amim literally mean 10 times. The translator said, yeah, it just means like they said it over and over again. I was like, I've told you 100 times, right? That's what they're saying is literally it means this, but we think, it should be translated as this. And some of it sounds idiomatic, and it sounds like he's recounting things that like people were saying these kind of things. It's not just like somebody said it, but like this is what the general sentiment was. This is the kind of stuff that you'd hear. And so he's explaining why what happened and why they responded the way that they did. So here's what it says.
I stationed on the lower levels of the place, behind the walls, on the bare rock. I stationed the people by families with their swords, their lances, and their bows. Then I decided to exhort the nobles, the prefects, and the rest of the people. Do not be afraid of them. Think of the great and awesome Lord and fight for your brothers, your sons and daughters, your wives, and homes. When our enemies learned that it had become known to us, since God had thus frustrated their plan, we could all return to the wall, each to his work. From that day on, half my servants did work, and half held lances and shields, bows and armor, and the officers stood behind the whole house of Judah.
So you understand what they did. They worked, but some of the people were on defense the whole time. And again, the equivalent would be, hey, look, we couldn't just work the kibbutz, right? There were not just people working on the kibbutz and the kibbutzim, and this is exactly what happened. They had to guard. Now, look, if you have able-bodied people, men and women, by the way, who are not able to work because they have to sit in a guard tower with a gun, it's obviously it's a lot less efficient. You can do your work and not have, you can get a lot more work done. So this is what they had to do. And according to this, it's like, half the people. So it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do. And it cuts down on how fast you can work. But the people left them alone, which is, again, sometimes just knowing that somebody on the other side has a gun or has a lance or a spear or bows and arrows, that's enough to keep people from attacking you. You don't have to necessarily go to war. You don't necessarily have to fight. They just know that it's there, and that keeps them, that works.
And the officers stood behind the whole house of Judah who were rebuilding the wall. The basket carriers were burdened, doing work with one hand while the other held a weapon. As for the builders, each had his sword girded at his side as he was building. The trumpeter stood beside me. I said to the nobles, the prefects, and the rest of the people, there's much work, and it is spread out. We are scattered over the wall, far from one another. When you hear a trumpet call, gather yourselves to me at that place. Our God will fight for us.
Yeah. And you can see it's a perfect time for us to be reading this because it's not just a trumpet.
It's a shofar.
It's a shofar. That's right, Judith. That's a kol shofar. When you hear the sound of the shofar, that means we have to come together. So wherever we are, once you hear that shofar, get to that place where you hear the shofar. So, communication, very important. Being able to alert people is hugely important. And the shofar, one of the jobs of the shofar was to do that. Understand that again, during the return of people to Israel 100 years ago, they had limited communication. We're talking about the 1920s, 1900s in some cases, they were just still, in some cases, there were lines laid, but you understand that like communication was vital, and there were cases where people were attacked and nobody knew about it until the next day. The kibbutz would be overrun by people. I'm talking about like 1910, 1920. Now that's what happened in some cases. Kibbutz would be wiped out. Community would be attacked. We know about it till the next day. Um, so communication is vital. Folks, one of the reasons why on October 7th that things were able to be, there was some response that was able to be done was because everyone had a cell phone. And in some cases, again, people were able to, speak to the headquarters and say, look, this is what the situation is right now, because everyone had a cell phone. It wasn't just, I mean, if you think about how much you can bypass by having a cell phone, right? Because like let's say you're on the phone with your supervisor, the lieutenant who's in charge of you, and you're telling the guy, and the guy's like, I don't know, what am I supposed to, you go, whatever. I'm going to call my cousin who's in the head office in Tel Aviv in the chief of staff's office. I'm going to tell him what's going on. You're not responding. You don't understand what's happening. There were cases of that happening on October 7th. It's just like people would just call somebody else and say, hey, look, this is what we got to get done right. I don't think you understand what's happening. Because in some cases, people just didn't understand what was happening. They couldn't believe what was happening. So, yeah, people with cell phones, I mean, the stuff that happened is crazy. Like we're still not even talking about it fully because we're in the midst of the war, but you've heard some of the stories. You heard the story, hopefully, of this family that they were in the kibbutz, and the guy called his father, and his father came and rescued him. Crazy story. His father was a general, retired general. It was on 60 Minutes. I called his dad, and his dad came and took out the guys that were standing out in front of the kibbutz. I mean, crazy story. But it's a cell phone, because the guy had a cell phone. He called from in his house. His house was surrounded by terrorists. Uh, Sounded like a Liam Neeson movie. I don't know if you remember that story, but I'm telling you, it was on 60 Minutes. It was crazy. And the guy was the Israeli guy. The guy was at like 65, 70 years old. The guy was he was so calm about it. I mean, it was like unbelievable. But yeah, there's a modern day version of this. It just happened 2 years ago. So yeah, getting people, communicating with them was pretty important. So working and defending themselves at the same time. Some things haven't changed.
And so we worked on, while half were holding lances, from the break of day until the stars appeared. I further said to the people at that time, let every man with his servant lodge in Jerusalem, that we may use the night to stand guard and the day to work. Nor did I, my brothers, my servants, or the guards following me ever take off our clothes or each his weapon, even at the water.
Yeah, it tells you that they could never stand down. Yeah, some of it makes me think about the 1920s, and some of it makes me think about 2025. Yeah, this is, you know, this is this has not changed, my friends. Do you know how many days Israel has lost in productivity of work over the last 2 years? It's been catastrophic. Not just the tourism and everything else that's been lost, but um, again, I mean, the destruction in Gaza for people in Gaza haven't worked for 2 years, whatever they were doing, but there's virtually 90% unemployment there in the first place. But in Israel, I mean, and the people from Gaza who are working in Israel up till 2023, Israel had let more people from Gaza in than they had in years because they thought things with Hamas were actually better. They were lulled into, as we said, a false sense of security. So there were a lot of people from Gaza that were coming over to work. more than ever until October. So yeah, a lot of productivity was lost. And you can see here, they can't do their work. Now, of course, the work that they were doing was for defense in the first place. I mean, the building the walls are to prevent, this kind of to have this kind of fear. But it shows you how important the walls of Jerusalem were. Once the walls go up, then they can get back to business. They can work, they can pray, they can do everything that they need. But they needed the walls because Jerusalem undefend, Jerusalem without walls is useless for the people because there's no natural, well, there is natural defense, but it's not going to stop an attack. So they had to build the walls. So let's look what happens here.
There was great outcry by the common folk and their wives against their brother Jews. Some said, "Our sons and daughters are numerous. We must get grain to eat in order that we may live." Others said, "We must pawn our fields, our vineyards, and our homes to get grain to stave off hunger." Yet others said, "We have borrowed money against our fields and vineyards to pay the king's tax. Now we are as good as our brothers and our children, as good as theirs. Yet here we are subjecting our sons and daughters to slavery. Some of our daughters are already subjected, and we are powerless while our fields and vineyards belong to others."
So what is happening is, again, the people are turning on each other because they're not really sure how they can afford to live here, because there's several competing issues here. Number one, they've got to raise this money to build the wall. But on top of that,
They're paying their
they
regular taxes.
they are in some cases, well, what we haven't heard here, which we know has happened, and we this is the part that like they haven't said, but what's happening. You have people who are returning back to Jerusalem after their families have been gone for 60, 70 years. They're coming back to Jerusalem and they're saying, "This is our place. This was our home. This is the property that my family owned." The problem is that, number one, there were other people in some cases living there. And number two, even though they had the land, they couldn't afford to do anything with it. So you're like, okay, I have land, but what am I going to do with it? And again, this happens. I mean, this is what happened to people who were slaves in this country after Civil War. Okay, here you have land, but you have no money, can't afford anything to plant with. You don't have any resources. So again, a lot of the people ended up, the whole idea of 40 acres and a mule was ridiculous because they had no infrastructure, they had no way of rebuilding or kind of becoming part of an economy. So that's part of it. Of course, what's also there, which you just heard, is the tax. The taxes that they had to pay to the government. So they're Persian citizens, so they also have to pay. They have to pay the Persians for the taxes on their land, which again, compared to our taxes, those were nothing. I mean, they're paying a lot less taxes than we are now. But this is also a situation where people, in some cases, are land rich, but they're cash poor. And so what are they going to do? And so in some cases, they essentially sell their land or they borrow against their land to create, the resources to do something with the land. So it makes people, it's demoralizing for them. So it's difficult to kind of like imagine, what the what this was like for people, maybe, but it's not that much different than Jews who came back to Europe after the Holocaust, and let's say they were in a camp, in Poland, and they went back to Germany, and they were like, "Yeah, my family had this department store, or they had this, these stores, or they had this house or whatever, but I have no money. I don't have any way of doing anything here. And quite frankly, I don't want to live here anymore." And so many of those Jews left. They didn't want to live in Europe, the survivors, and they came to America, or they came to Australia or Canada or wherever. They got out. They went to Israel. But in this case, these people went back knowing that they were going to have a struggle. But now it's like, it's even worse than we thought because we don't have we don't have the resources to do it here. What am I going to do? I mean, where am I going to go? So, yeah, they were. This is the struggle that they're dealing with. So they're dealing with the outside struggle, the external struggle of the other people attacking them, and now they're also dealing with their own like, what do we do? So here's Nehemiah, who's his dream is to help rebuild the community. This is devastating for him.
It angered me very much to hear their outcry and these complaints. After pondering the matter carefully, I censured the nobles and the prefects, saying, "Are you pressing claims on loans made to your brothers?" Then I raised a large crowd against them and said to them, "We've done our best to buy back our Jewish brothers who were sold to the nations. Will you now sell your brothers so that they must be sold back to us?" They kept silent, for they found nothing to answer.
So to the wealthy class, he said to them, look, you cannot make things tough on your fellow resettled people because they're trying to start. We're trying to rebuild here, and so this is really an appeal to the it's a popular appeal of you've got to go easy on your brothers and sisters here, and it's very powerful what he says to them. He says, look, we've worked real hard to get back to where we are. And this is a heavy duty thing he says to them. You're essentially taking your own people in as indentured servants. We have been trying to get these people back who've already been sold as indentured servants to other countries. Now you're going to make them indentured servants? So his appeal is pretty powerful. And he basically says they had to shut up. They couldn't say anything to me because I'm saying you're taking advantage of your fellow Jewish settlers. He says, that's ridiculous. We're trying to get everybody back home. And in some cases, you can see it was getting them back. It was ransoming them back from other countries. That's a mitzvah, by the way. That's a Jewish mitzvah, that if you know that a Jewish person is being held as a slave, we have to try to get them back. If they're being held as indentured servant, if they're being held in prison as essentially a hostage, we have to get them back. And that's why Jews are devastated by what's happened with the hostages that have been held in Gaza for the last 2 years, for the last 704 days. It's devastating because that's like our highest priority. By the way, it kept Jews alive for much of the last 2,000 years in precarious situations. You know that, right? When people on the high seas would get kidnapped, and when pirates would take hostages, which they did all the time, because piracy was like, that was a thing, It wasn't just a thing in the Pirates of the Caribbean. It was a thing in the Mediterranean. That's why we had to send the Marines into, right? The shores of Tripoli were pirates, Barbary pirates, right? Yeah, piracy was a big thing. And if Jews were caught on a ship that was raided, they usually survived. The other people would get taken into slavery or just thrown overboard. Jews would get captured and be ransomed. The people would sail to the next port. The pirates would come to the next port, and they would ransom the Jews. And who would pay? The Jews of that city. And they sailed into Parma or to Corsica or wherever, whatever the local city that the pirates were going to then take their ship to. They'd take the Jews there and they'd ransom them off. Yeah, it happened all the time for 2,000 years because they knew that Jews would pay for their own people. And it was random people. It wasn't like, these were people paying for their brothers or sisters or their cousins or their aunt or uncle. It was just random Jews that we took off of a ship. Yep. That's what we call pidyon shivuim, ransoming the captives. So in some cases, it's even just getting a dead body back. So, um, yeah, Nehemiah is laying it out for these people, and he's telling the truth. So he's telling these people, don't take advantage of your fellow people. We're working hard trying to get them ransomed. You know, you're going to put them back into slavery. Are you kidding me? So here's what he said.
So I continued, what you are doing is
Oh
not
my
right.
gosh, it's Rosemary.
Oh, did you
All
want me
right.
to?
No, I know. Keep going. Right.
So I continued, what you are doing is not right. You ought to act in a God-fearing way so as not to give our enemies, the nations, room to reproach us. I, my brothers, and my servants also have claims of money and grain against them. Let us now abandon those claims.
Wow.
Give back at once their fields, their vineyards, their olive trees, and their homes, and abandon the claims for the 100 pieces of silver, the grain, the wine, and the oil that you have been pressing against them. They replied, we shall give them back and not demand anything of them. We shall do just as you say. Summoning the priests, I put them under oath to keep this promise. I also shook out the bosom of my garment and said, so may God shake free of his household and property any man who fails to keep this promise. May he be thus shaken out and stripped. All the assembled answered, Amen, and praised the Lord. The people kept this promise.
Yeah, it's a pretty powerful scene because, again, it is one where the people who were economically, in charge said, yeah, we better not take advantage of these people. And they gave up their claims. They literally said, we're going to let these people start over. And so, of not making your own people slaves. Yeah. So John just said he's using the Torah as a basis for it, but he didn't have to do it at this stage, right? Because we do have a jubilee year. We have a year where we free people from debt, but this wasn't it. This was a can't like this is a situational problem, right? Right now we have a problem. We cannot have people go into debt when we're trying to rebuild our country. So this was yes, this is what we do for God. This is what and again, he says we're essentially doing it for God because it's the right thing to do. But this was a situational dilemma. I mean, he had to do it for the time that they were in. He didn't have to do it for religious reasons in this moment, but he did it. He appealed to the same reasons, and he again applied that same system, which is we're going to do it. And again, this one seems to be like even more broad than the ones that we have in Leviticus and Deuteronomy, which is the remission of debt, remissions of these kind of debts. But this one seems to be like even bigger in the sense that this is like not just for indentured servitude. This is for like your debt. Like your debt's wiped clean. We're going to start over. We're going to let people have a fresh start. So it's a big deal. And look, it was a cost for people. I mean, remember were people who, I was collecting this money and now I don't get it. I mean, it's literally like as if you had you have a T-bill and you say, yeah, I'll give it up. Look, don't think this may not happen one day in our country. I hope I'm not there for it. I hope I'm long gone when this happens. But when our debts are come due, I hope there's people who are in a position to not. Yeah, it's going to be bad. It could be very bad. But I could also see us one day going to war to make sure we don't have to pay back our debts, because strong countries and strong people usually get out of paying their debts. So don't be surprised if one day we have a war with, I don't know, maybe China. And part of the deal at the end of the war is we don't owe you any money anymore. I see that happening one day. I see that. I wouldn't say it's inevitable, but I'd say it's almost inevitable that one day there will be a war over, I don't know, the Philippines, and uh, China loses. And not only do they lose, but we say, you know, that money that we owe you, you know, that, you know, all those debts that we have to you because of your holding our bonds. Yeah, we're not paying those. So I'm not a prophet. I just study history. that's that's the way we get out of debt usually. That's the way people have traditionally gotten out of debt when they're more powerful. So that's not what happened just now. The powerful people said, "Yep, we're walking away," because they appealed to a higher power, and they did it. Wow, that's a kind of a nice scene, but you get a little break. So let's see what happens here.
Furthermore, from the day I was commissioned to be governor in the land of Judah, from the 20th year of King Artaxerxes until his 32nd year, 12 years in all, neither I nor my brothers ever ate of the governor's food allowance.
Yeah. So he just said, I didn't take advantage of my position, right? I didn't do what I could have done.
The former governors who preceded me laid heavy burdens on the people and took from them for bread and wine more than 40 shekels of silver. Their servants also tyrannized over the people, but I, out of the fear of God, did not do so. I also supported the work on this wall. We did not buy any land, and all my servants were gathered there at the work.
Yeah. So this is Nehemiah basically saying, look, I didn't do what I could have done. I didn't do what the people previously had done. The Jewish governors, by the way, Jewish governors. He says, I didn't do that. I didn't take advantage of the people. I didn't make them pay for my food. I didn't do all the things that, like, it's like basically saying I was in Congress and I didn't take any money. I didn't take a salary. That's what he just said. I didn't take any money. And not only that, economically, he was in a position where he could have taken advantage of the people. He could have said, "Oh, these people are selling their property dirt cheap. They're in the hole, right? They can't afford. Look, I have 100 acres. I'm poor. I'm going to sell 50 of those acres to buy supplies so that I can harvest the other. I can actually work on the other 50 acres. The people that were buying the other 50 acres are people like Nehemiah. They're people who are wealthy, who have the resources to buy it. He says, I could have done it. I could have taken advantage of the situation. I didn't do it. Okay. We worked like everybody else. So this is, he's taking credit for it. But again, he's pointing out what he could have done. You figure it out. I mean, he's in power and he doesn't take advantage of his power.
Although there were at my table, between Jews and prefects, 150 men in all, beside those who came to us from surrounding nations. And although what was prepared for each day came to one ox, 6 select sheep and fowl, all prepared for me, and at 10-day intervals all sorts of wine in abundance. Yet I did not resort to the governor's food allowance, for the king's service lay heavily on the people.
Yeah, they were getting taxed hard.
Oh my God, remember to my credit all that I have done for this people.
Yeah, that sounds like a guy who wrote it, by the way. This doesn't sound like it was written by some random person or some person who lived a long time afterwards. This sounds like a guy who's saying, God, remember the things that I did. And it's like, I did it. Like, somebody else is not probably going to write that like that. Remember me, right? God, remember me, give me, hopefully for all the other stuff I've done, right? Remember this stuff that I did that was really good. So this is a guy who is concerned with his own legacy. He's concerned with being remembered for the good things that he did. And you read between the lines, you realize what was being done, what had been done, what other people had been doing when they had positions like this, and you can figure it out. So he didn't do that stuff. But by pointing out what he didn't do, you can see what had been done, right? So it's going to turn back to the external threat.
When word reached Sanballat, Tobiah, Geshem the Arab, and the rest of our enemies that I had rebuilt the wall and not a breach remained in it, though at that time I had not yet set up doors in the gateways, Sanballat and Geshem sent a message to me saying, "Come, let us get together in Kephirim in the Ono Valley. They plan to do me harm."
Yeah. So he's not quite done with the work. He's done a lot of the work in that he's rebuilt the walls and he's patched all the holes, right? The holes are all patched, but he hasn't finished the doors, the gateways, and the gates and the openings. So this is still important. I mean, they've done the hard work, but there's also work that still needs to be done. And so when the enemies of this, the Sumerians and the Arabs and the leaders of the other peoples in the area realize that this is they're wrapping up the work, they're going to kill him. And he says that he knows why they're trying to meet him. It's not to break bread. It's to hurt him. So
I sent the messengers, saying, "I am engaged in a great work and cannot come down, for the work will stop if I leave it in order to come down to you." They sent me the same message 4 times, and I gave them the same answer.
yeah, it just seems like this guy really wrote this, like 4 times. It's like, it's not. It seems very detailed. And yeah, he says, "I don't have time. I'm too busy. Can't get around to it." So we know what he told them too. Didn't just say no. He says, I got work to do.
Sanballat sent me the same message a 5th time by his servant, who had an open letter with him. Its text was, "Word has reached the nations, and Geshem too says that you and the Jews are planning to rebel, for which reason you are building the wall, and that you are to be their king. Such is the word."
So now there's an outright challenge and threat, which is, yeah, we know what you're up to, Nehemiah. You're not just building a wall for protection. You're building a wall because you're going to rebel. You're going to rebel against the Persians. And we know they've already tried to do this. They've already tried to create problems for the Jews, and they were successful by telling the Persians, if the Jews rebuild Jerusalem, they're going to be a problem to you. They're always a problem. Look back in the records, you'll see. They made it a nightmare for the Babylonians. You want that? So that worked. Now they're trying to pull the same thing again. So you can see what they're doing. Again, we know this guy Sanballat was a real person. We have the evidence from him in the Elephantine Papyri, where we know that this guy was a powerful leader of the Sumerians at the time. He was a legitimately powerful guy, and it seems like at least as powerful, if not more powerful than Nehemiah. Again, the people that he rules, that he's in charge of, his authority, if you will, is a corresponding leader to Nehemiah, is the Samaritans. They are the people who live in the northern, and when I say northern part of Israel, I'm literally, he's only living like 20 miles away from Nehemiah. He's not that far. He's maybe not even 20 miles, might be 15 miles away from Nehemiah. So it's like the northern part, but it's like the difference between, here in San Fernando Valley. It's not far. He knows what's going on. He's very worried about the fact that the Judeans are rebuilding. It's not good for him. It's not good for his control. So he's undermining them. That's what he's doing. Okay.
"You have also set up prophets in Jerusalem to proclaim about you, 'There is a king in Judah.' Word of these things will surely reach the king. So come, let us confer together." I sent back a message to him saying, "None of these things you mention has occurred. They are figments of your imagination, for they all wished to intimidate us, thinking they will desist from the work and it will not get done. Now, strengthen my hands."
So, yeah, he's threatening. Sanballat's threatening them, and he's saying, like, we're going to shut you down because we're telling the Persians that you're rebelling, and you're telling people and you're encouraging people to say that you're the king, you're the new king. Nehemiah at no point so far has let us believe that he wants to be king. Remember, He served in the Persian court. So he knows the Persians, he knows them, he seems to like them. He's doing everything he can to be in their good graces. And maybe that, of course, helped because the Persians really knew him. Remember, Sanballat is a Samaritan. He lives in the land of Israel, and he is not a guy who was in the Persian court. Nehemiah was a guy who literally lived in the Persian court for the first half of his life. He knows how things go there, and they know him. He's a known quantity. So they, like, as long as he's really not doing anything wrong, he's fine. He knows he's fine. I mean, he's not happy about this. Don't get me wrong. He wishes this wasn't happening, but right now he's like, I know I haven't done anything. And there are prophets running around Jerusalem at this point. We said these are like the last generation of prophets, but he wants those prophets to encourage the people to rebuild. He's not asking them to tell everybody there's going to be a new king. Look, what's not being said here by Nehemiah and by the Bible is the fact that, like, why wasn't there? Or maybe there was, and Nehemiah just is not having any of it. But the logical idea would be, hey, we have autonomy, we have our control back. Let's get a king back. Let's get another king. We're supposed to have a king. Make another king. The Jewish people during this period do not do that. Why did they not do that? It's a good question. It's a legitimately, like, it's one of the few times in Jewish history where the Jews don't seem to be aggressively fighting for their own autonomy politically. And it worked. It kept them from having problems. But it must have taken a certain level of self-control, because there were some Jews who were saying, let's have a king. Let's go back and have a king. We're supposed to have a king. The descendant of David is supposed to be the king. We're always supposed to have a king. Nehemiah isn't having it. And again, it could be because he's very happy working for the Persians. If you have a leader who is like, I don't care whether we have a king, we're part of the Persian Empire, and that's where we're going to stay. That's what Nehemiah is. Were there people in the land of Israel, Judeans, who were saying, Nehemiah is this Persian stooge? I think it's very possible. I think it's very possible that there were Judeans who were into self-rule who said, Nehemiah is he's a Persian stooge. He's a tool of the Persian autocracy, whatever we're going to call him. Look, maybe one of the reasons why this guy is so into forgiving debts for people and maintaining his popular appeal is because some of those populists would have said, we just need our own king. If we don't have to pay taxes to the Persians, we'll have a lot of money. We'll have our own money. Why are we begging the Persians for stuff? We're paying them money. Nehemiah maybe kept the Jews from being destroyed, not just from the next door neighbors, but because he was able to keep this relationship with the Persian Empire, which works for another 100 years. And I told you, we don't know anything about this period because everything seems pretty cool. The people who followed him followed the same policy, which is part of the Persian Empire. Relax. There doesn't need to be a Jewish king. There doesn't need to be a guy that we call a king. But that's a different theory than the previous 1,000 years of Jewish history. Well, not 1,000, but 700 years, where somebody said there's got to be a Jewish king. It all goes out the window, obviously, after Alexander the Great's empire falls apart, where Jews start to say, no, we're supposed to have a king. But part of it is when you don't have a strong central authority. When the Persians are running the show, when Alexander the Great is running the show, you know who your boss is. I'll say one caveat to that. The problem is that the Roman Empire went through phases where there were strong leaders and the Jews behaved. And whenever there was a sign of weakness in the Roman Empire, the Jews stopped behaving. And it wasn't just Jews, by the way. It was Britons. It was It was Germans. It's every part of the Roman Empire. Whenever they saw a weakness in the Roman Empire, they would revolt and they would try to create their own autonomy. The Jews did it too. So that's the one thing where you go, yeah, but as soon as they have a good emperor, they're going to conquer everything. As soon as there's a Caesar who knows what he's doing, you're doomed. But for a few years, we had autonomy. I don't know. To me, it's a kind of a crazy idea. But look, we have the ability to look back from 2,000 years of history. But yeah, look, at the end of the day, today, Israel doesn't do things unless, for the most part, they have an American blessing on it. Don't think that the attack last night or today on Doha didn't have the blessing of the President of the United States. There's no way that attack on Qatar is. There's no way that happened without the blessing. So Israel is not a vassal of the United States, but they're still, they're still, they're still, there's still people that they got to get permission for to do things, especially when they're on an international stage. Okay, so back to Nehemiah. This isn't, he's telling everybody, calm down. He's telling Sambalat, you're not going to get me in trouble. But he's worried about it. I mean, like this is a legitimate problem. That's why he talked about it. So here's what he does.
Then I visited Shemaiah, son of Delaiah, son of Mehetabel, when he was housebound, and he said, let us meet in the house of God, inside the sanctuary, and let us shut the doors of the sanctuary, for they are coming to kill you. By night they are coming to kill you. I replied, will a man like me take flight? Besides, who such as I can go into the sanctuary and live? I will not go in. Then I realized that it was not God who sent him, but that he uttered that prophecy about me, Tobiah and Sanballat having hired him, because he was a hireling, that I might be intimidated and act thus and commit a sin, and so provide them a scandal with which to reproach me.
So it seems that Tobiah and Sanballat bribed a Jewish guy to try to get Nehemiah in trouble. So Nehemiah would go into the sanctuary. He'd go into the temple, the new temple that they had just built, the sanctuary area that they built. He would go in there, and he would say he's going there for protection, and he would be doing a horrible thing because he's not supposed to be in there. But he'd say, I did it because I was getting attacked, and there would be nobody attacking him. So he figured out that this was a ruse to try to get him into trouble. So he realizes that, he's got people in his own community that are being paid off and that are working against him. So this is not an easy situation. So everybody sees this. They're trying to trick him. They're trying to get him into trouble. That's the way Sanballat is trying to do it. So he's trying to intimidate them. He's trying to scare them, trying to scare Nehemiah, and he's doing his best to keep his cool.
Oh my God, remember against Tobiah and Sanballat these deeds of theirs, and against Noadiah the prophetess, and against the other prophets that they wished to intimidate me. The wall was finished on the 25th of Elul after 52 days.
Yeah. And by the way, that'd be like next week. Next week will be about the 25th of Elul. It's about a week before Rosh Hashanah. 4 or 5 days before, whatever. So, yeah, it's around this time of year. But you can see what he just gave away, which is there's people in Judea, there's people in his own community that are working against him, including a woman who's a prophetess. We don't know anything about this woman. Her name is Noadiah, but she was working against him. Again, we don't know exactly what she was doing. We don't know, what she said in particular, but we don't have her anywhere else. We don't know exactly, but he just told us what was going on. People are working within the community to intimidate him. So, not easy, but the work got finished. The wall was.
When all our enemies heard it, all the nations round about us were intimidated and fell very low in their own estimation. They realized that this work had been accomplished by the help of our God. Also in those days, the nobles of Judah kept up a brisk correspondence with Tobiah, and Tobiah with them. Many in Judah were his confederates, for he was the son-in-law of the Shechaniah, son of Arah, and his son, Yehohanan, had married the daughter of Meshullam, son of Berechiah. They would also speak well of him to me and would divulge my affairs to him. Tobiah sent letters to intimidate me.
So you can see that part of the problem was that this guy, in particular with Tobiah, which, as I said, he's got a Hebrew name. I mean, not just he's got God's name in it. He's got Tobiah. As I said, it's the name Tevye, Tobias. Yeah, he's got family in the community, right? So he's an enemy, but he's got family in our community. So he knows what's happening, right? He knows what's going on in our community, and he knows what's happening. He's being briefed regularly about what we're doing, the work we're doing, how far along we are, what's going on. So this is not good for Nehemiah. He's got spies in his own community working against him. He's got people undermining his work. It's not a good situation. It's not an easy situation. But he's just like, what am I going to do? This guy is, he knows what's happening, and he can cause us problems. Part of the problem, again, according to what Nehemiah says, is that the area, the place where he's weak is not with the people, right? He's already forgiven their debts. They love Nehemiah. It's the nobles, right? It's the people who essentially had to give up that debt, right? The people who were economically impacted by him. He's not doing well with the other rich people, with the other leadership that he's kind of ticked off. So he understands where his weakness is. He understands who he's not succeeding with. So weird situation, but not uncommon in politics. So let's continue. What does he do?
When the wall was rebuilt and I had set up the doors, tasks were assigned to the gatekeepers, the singers, and the Levites. I put Hanani, my brother, and Hananiah, the captain of the fortress, in charge of Jerusalem, for he was a more trustworthy and God-fearing man than most.
Yeah, well, it's also his brother. So, there's a little nepotism going on here with at least Hanani. So you have Hanani and Hananiah. It's almost the same. It's missing a hey at the end, but Hanani means literally like grace, like Hana, and Hananiah is the grace of God. So these guys are in charge of Jerusalem now, right? He puts these people in charge. Look what he does.
I said to them, the gates of Jerusalem are not to be opened until the heat of the day, and before you leave your posts, let the doors be closed and barred, and assign the inhabitants of Jerusalem to watches, each man to his watch, and each in front of his own house.
Yeah. Just keep in mind, like, we're not going to get to the end today, but try to figure out what's going to happen here. I mean, just in your own mind, if you haven't read the story before, where's this going?
The city was broad and large. The people in it were few, and houses were not yet built. My God put it into my mind to assemble the nobles, the prefects, and the people in order to register them by families. I found the genealogical register of those who were the first to come up, and there I found written, these are the people of the province who came up from among the captive exiles that Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had deported, and who returned to Jerusalem and to Judah, each to his own city, who came with Zerubbabel, Yeshua, Nehemiah, Azariah, Raamiah, Nahamani, Mordecai, Bilshan, Misperet, Bigvai, Nehum, Ba'anah. The number of the men of the people of Israel, the sons of Parosh, 2,172. The sons of Shephatiah, 372. The sons of Arah, 652. The sons of Pahat Moab, the sons of Yeshua and Joab, 2,818. The sons of Elam, 1,254. The sons of Zatu, 845. The sons of Zakai, 760. The sons of Binui, 648. The sons of Bebai, 628. The sons of Azgad, 2,322. The sons of Adonikam, 667. The sons of Bigvai, 2,067. The sons of Adin, 655. The sons of Ater, Hezekiah, 98. The sons of Hashum, 328. The sons of Bezai, 324. The sons of Harif, 112. The sons of Gibeon, 95. The men of Bethlehem and Netophah, 188. The men of Anatot, 128. The men of Bet Azmavet, 42. The men of Kiryat Yerim, Kephirah, and Beeroth, 743. The men of Ramah and Geba, 621. The men of Mikmas, 122. The men of Bethel and Ai, 123. The men of the other Nebo, 52. The sons of the other Elam, 1,254. The sons of Harim, 320. The sons of Jericho, 345. The sons of Lod, Hadid, and Ono, 721. The sons of Senaa, 3,930. The priests. The sons of Yediah, the house of Yeshua, 973. The sons of Immer, 1,052. The sons of Pashur, 1,247. The sons of Harim, 1,017. The Levites, the sons of Yeshua, Kadmiel, the sons of Hodiah, 74. The singers, the sons of Asaph, 148. The gatekeepers, the sons of Shalom, the sons of Ater, the sons of Talmon, the sons of Akub, the sons of Hatita, the sons of Shabai, 138. The temple servants, the sons of Ziha, the sons of Hasufa, the sons of Tabaot, the sons of Kiros, the sons of Siah, the sons of Padon, the sons of Labana, the sons of Hagaba, the sons of Shalmai, the sons of Hanan, the sons of Gidel, the sons of Gahar, the sons of Raiah, the sons of Rezin, the sons of Nekoda, the sons of Gazam, the sons of Uzzah, the sons of Paseah, the sons of Besai, the sons of Meonim, the sons of Nephishim, the sons of Bakbuk, the sons of Hakufa, the sons of Harhur, the sons of Bazlit, the sons of Mechida, the sons of Harsha, the sons of Barkos, the sons of Sisera, the sons of Tema, the sons of Neziah, the sons of Hatifa. The sons of Solomon's servants, the sons of Sotai, the sons of Soperet, the sons of Perida, the sons of Yalah, the sons of Darkon, the sons of Gidel, the sons of Shephatiah, the sons of Hatil, the sons of Pokeret Hazebaim, the sons of Ammon. The total of temple servants and the sons of Solomon's servants, 392. The following were those who came up from Tel Melech, Tel Harsha, Keruv, Adon, and Emer. They were unable to tell whether their father's house and descent were Israelite. The sons of Delaiah, the sons of Tobiah, the sons of Nekoda, 642. Of the priests, the sons of Habiah, the sons of Hakos, the sons of Barzillai, who had married a daughter of Barzillai the Gileadite and had taken his name, these searched for their genealogical records, but they could not be found, so they were disqualified for the priesthood. The Tirshata ordered them not to eat of the most holy things until a priest with Urim and Tumim should appear. The sum of the entire community was 42,360.
Thank you, Rosemary. And again, if that list sounded familiar, it's because we read it before. This was, again, a list of the people who came up in the first wave of people. Now, you notice some of the people, at least the priests, would be disqualified. And this title right here, the Tirshata, is a Persian title. It's an Aramaic word. It's a means that some priests were disqualified, and they had to be disqualified not just by the other priests, but by the government, because they would say, well, you don't have authority to tell me that we're not priests. We believe we're priests. But they said, no, we have a royal stamp on this. You're not coming. Your families are not coming in. Unless, of course, we have Urim and Tumim. And Urim and Tumim are the, as we talked about before, the magic 8 balls that were used by the people who came after Moses to determine God's will. We don't exactly know how they were used. The theory is they were some type of either literally die, with different letters on them, but that they would be used as a way to divine God's purposes by using those two die. So either maybe they had, each one were like kind of decahedron die. You have 12 sides or 13-sided die, and would have the whole Hebrew alphabet. Or they each had, we don't know. But the understanding is that one has an aleph, has the word for Urim, which is light, and the other one has the word for Tumim, which is truth, or Tom means simple, but it means true or pure. The aleph and taf maybe give away the fact that they're A to Z, so to speak. They're cards or die or something that have the letters on them, but we don't know for sure. Of course, all we know is it's on the crest of Yale University. It says or even Tumium on it, which is another way of saying, let's try to understand what we're supposed to do. But yeah, that's going to get us the answer. But that's another way of saying we don't know, and you're never going to know, and we're not going to make a decision on this. We are making a decision. You're not coming in, but we're not going to know for sure unless we have God tell us. And when God tells us, we'll let you come back in to be priests. So some of the people were not considered priests. It says that right there. And again, according to this, about 42,000 people came back with, let's actually finish this.
Not counting their male and female servants, these being 7,337, they also had 245 male and female singers. Their horses, 736, their mules, 245, camels, 435, asses, 6,720. Some of the heads of the clans made donations for the work. The Tirshata donated to the treasury gold, 1,000 drachmas, basins, 50, priestly robes, 530. Some of the heads of the clans donated to the work treasury gold, 20,000 drachmas, and silver, 2,200 minas. The rest of the people donated gold, 20,000 drachmas, silver, 2,000, and priestly robes, 67.
Yeah, I just want to point out, by the way, that that's a lot. I mean, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, and again, it's going towards something very important. But if you look at, again, say you know nothing about what a drachma is worth, right? 20,000 drachmas of gold was donated by the heads of the clans. And then it says the rest of the people donated 20,000. So, and 2,000 minas of silver, which is roughly what the heads of clans, actually a little less. So what you can see is that people donated money. In some cases, again, you'd have a small group of nobles who donated as much as the rest of the people combined. But it's about 50,000 people that come back during the first wave, the wave before Nehemiah. And of course, some of those people were priests hoping to go back to work into a temple that would be rebuilt.
The priests, the Levites, the gatekeepers, the singers, some of the people, the temple servants, and all Israel took up residence in their towns. When the 7th month arrived, the Israelites, being settled in their towns, the entire people assembled as one man in the square before the water gate, and they asked Ezra the scribe to bring the scroll of the teaching of Moses with which the Lord had charged Israel.
So we read about this in the book of Ezra. This is what the book of Ezra ends with, which is Ezra reading the Torah to the people. And if not the Torah, the book of Deuteronomy. It says the teaching of Moses, which is Torah Moshe. But is the Torah Moshe at this time all the Bible, or all the Torah, or is it just the book of Deuteronomy? Now look, it makes sense it's the book of Deuteronomy, because if you're going to get everybody together to hear a teaching, are they going to sit there the whole time while the Torah is read? I mean, that's going to take like a long time. It's going to take at least a day to hear the Torah being read. So is it like maybe a part of it, right? It's the book of Deuteronomy, which would take a couple hours maybe to read the whole book of Deuteronomy. But one of the things that we believe is that during this time of Ezra, that it might have been Ezra who put the Bible together, or at least the Torah together as we have it today, meaning Genesis through Deuteronomy. So that, let's say he had the book of Deuteronomy and he had the other books too, but he said, we need to put this together as one book. And so Ezra, we call him Ezra the scribe, is one of the titles that we have for him, right? Ezra HaSofer is what it's called here. He might have been the one who edited the Torah as we have it. One of the reasons that some people say, look, Ezra is also a priest, and he seems very interested in genealogy. He seems very interested in the records of who came from where, and this list that we just had, which was in the book of Ezra, is typical for priests and for people who are wanting to make sure we know who's a priest and who's not a priest, and who's descended from who, and whose father is who. That's stuff priests are very involved with. And the theory goes that the reason that we have those amazingly long lists in certain parts of Genesis, and then later on in other parts of the Bible, that we have these lists of people like Numbers, which begins with a whole list of numbers, is because someone like Ezra would have been wanting to make sure that those numbers are preserved. And so that when he talks about his numbers, they're kind of like based on numbers, and they're connected to the numbers that we have in the Bible, especially in Numbers, but also in Genesis. I mean, Genesis has lists of genealogies, right? So you have a genealogy, almost right away in the Bible. But those are the kinds of things that the priests are interested in. And it's definitely something that Ezra would have been interested in. So again, Nehemiah, this is his take on it. I'm not saying it's different from what Ezra is. It's really not. As a matter of fact, some of it is just, it's repeated from there. But let us read what happens, at least from his standpoint, when Ezra did what he did. So Ezra, by the way, is called Ezra the scribe here. That's what it says. Ezra HaSofer. Ezra the scribe. Okay. But he's also...
On the first day of the 7th month, Ezra the priest brought the teaching before the congregation, men and women and all who could listen with understanding.
Yeah, that's the same guy. Ezra the priest is also Ezra HaSofer. And he is like, again, as I mentioned before, he is like Moses. He is a guy who does lots of things. He is a priest, he is a prophet, he is a scribe, and he is a leader. And so what he does is he brings the people together And it says he is going to teach them. He's going to give them the teaching.
He read from it, facing the square before the water gate, from the first light until midday, to the men and the women and those who could understand. The ears of all the people were given to the scroll of the teaching. Ezra the scribe stood upon a wooden tower made for the purpose, and beside him stood Mattithiah, Shema, Ananiah, Uriah, Hilkiah, and Maaseiah at his right, and at his left Pedaiah, Mishael, Malchiah, Hashum, Hashbaddanah, Zechariah, Meshullam.
Yep. So as these people are surrounding him, and of course there's 12 people surrounding him, pretty symbolic. And again, if you thought that this is a different person, it says Ezra the priest. Well, there it says Ezra the scribe, then it says Ezra the priest, and here it says again Ezra the scribe. So this is, this is a very dramatic scene, and definitely seems like Nehemiah is very much in favor of what's happening here.
Ezra opened the scroll in the sight of all the people, for he was above all the people. As he opened it, all the people stood up. Ezra blessed the Lord, the great God, and all the people answered, Amen, Amen, with hands upraised. Then they bowed their heads and prostrated themselves before the Lord with their faces to the ground.
Wow. It's a pretty dramatic scene. People being read the Torah, or at least part of the Torah, and then they're all hearing this in the square by the gate, the water gate, and they say Amen, Amen, and then they bow down. They bow to God.
Yeshua, Bani, Sherebiah, Yamin, Hakub, Shabbatai, Hodiah, Maaseiah, Kelita, Azariah, Yozabad, Hanan, Peliah, and the Levites explained the teaching to the people, while the people stood in their places. They read from the scroll of the teaching of God, translating it and giving the sense, so they understood the reading.
Did you just hear that?
Didn't speak Hebrew.
That's not a little thing. Ezra just stood on top of them all on a big thing, like a big perch, big tower, and he's reading them the Torah. They don't understand what he's saying. They translated it. They told them what they were saying in Aramaic. They have a guy translating what he's saying in Hebrew. In Israel, folks. It's just, I'm not, he just read it. That's amazing. We have this idea, again, it like goes over people's, literally, it goes over their heads. He's over their heads. He's literally reading in the Bible in the land of Israel, where the words were written, where the words were taken from. And there's no question, but by the time they come back from their Babylonian exile, they don't speak Hebrew. Is it a totally different language? No, it's close enough that I'm sure they understand some of the words. It's not like they're completely like not hearing, but they don't understand it. They need somebody to translate it for them. It just told us that. It's not a secret. It's not like we have to figure that out. They told us they needed a translator. That's amazing. It kind of maybe also, we don't want to think about that. We don't want to talk about it, but I think it's important. And I think it's an interesting thing, which is, we kind of get mad at ourselves sometimes, or maybe you don't, but you're like, I don't know Hebrew. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I wish everyone knew Hebrew. I wish we all knew Hebrew better. But guess what? 2,500 years ago, your ancestors standing in the land of Israel didn't know Hebrew. Or they didn't know it well enough that they didn't have to have a translator. Open your eyes, man. It's not like, it's not great, but it's also not the end of the world. And it's also not something that, let's be honest about it. Let's be honest. Let's also say that again, it's a Jewish tradition to read it in translation. It's okay. Again, we try to give people a little bit of the Hebrew, right? And we tell the word, sofer, and the word for scribe, and it's vaikru sefer. It's the same word. The word Torah is there. Those words that we know, some of the words we know, but some of them we don't. And some of them we need translation with, and that's okay.
Nehemiah the Tirshatha, Ezra the priest and scribe, and the Levites who were explaining to the people said to all the people, "This day is holy to the Lord your God. You must not mourn or weep." For all the people were weeping as they listened to the words of the teaching.
Wow. What do you think they were weeping about? Why were they weeping?
Maybe because they didn't understand it. They realized how much they'd lost.
That's I mean, what is really interesting about this is that it tells us that people didn't they felt I mean, we can all come up with reasons for why they what really hit them here, but something hit them in this. Again, maybe they didn't feel worthy of being able to be there. Maybe again, they realized that they were blessed to be able to do something that they were the first in generations to do. Maybe they're so happy that they cried. But there definitely seems to be a sense of mourning, right? There also seems to be, because he says it's not just crying, or maybe you could say there's mourning and there's weeping, and the weeping could have been for feeling, not worthy of this experience, but he also says don't mourn, and the mourning is also for everything that they've lost, the fact that they lost this, which also could be let's not lose it again, but this is an emotional moment. Anybody have any other comments? To me, it's a very powerful scene, because they weren't just. It wasn't just a moment of celebration. It was a moment of. It was a moment they were overcome by emotion. Anything else? I do want to point out who's the Tirshata? Nehemiah. Nehemiah just kind of in the third person. He's just called himself what he is. He's that Tirshata. He is the governor. So the guy who said who is a priest and who's not a priest, it was Nehemiah. It's Nehemiah's choice. No, I would say his choice. Who's his ruling? He ruled it. So maybe Ezra had told him, yeah, these people aren't priests. We don't know what their genealogy is. We're disqualifying them. Which, by the way, is like that's a big deal. Disqualifying someone for being a priest is not a little thing. And I can guarantee you, those people, they don't like Nehemiah. He just took away their job, took away their life, took away their genealogy, if you will. But yeah, it's a Persian title. It's, as I said, it's the governor. He's the governor. So he's there for that scene, and he describes him and Ezra in that scene with the Levites. It's beautiful. So let's finish this chapter up.
He further said to them, "Go, eat choice foods and drink sweet drinks, and send portions to whoever has nothing prepared, for the day is holy to our Lord. Do not be sad, for your rejoicing in the Lord is the source of your strength." The Levites were quieting the people, saying, "Hush, for the day is holy. Do not be sad." Then all the people went to eat and drink and send portions and make great merriment, for they understood the things they were told. On the second day, the heads of the clans of all the people and the priests and Levites gathered to Ezra the scribe to study the words of the teaching. They found written in the teaching that the Lord had commanded Moses that the Israelites must dwell in booths during the festival of the 7th month.
That's Sukkot, folks. That's what's happening in a month from now. Literally a month from now will be Sukkot. Well, it tells us that Well, let's read what this says. Let's read what it tells them.
And that they must announce and proclaim throughout all their towns in Jerusalem as follows. Go out to the mountains and bring leafy branches of olive trees, pine trees, myrtles, palms, and other leafy trees to make booths, as it is written.
Yeah, well, it's not just to make booths, it's also to make the lulav, right? You need the myrtles, the palms, those kind of things but you also need, of course, the olive trees, the pine trees. You're going to make the sukkot. You got to have those things too. But it's the sukkot and the lulav, right?
So the people went out and brought them and made themselves booths on their roofs, in their courtyards, in the courtyards of the house of God, in the square of the water gate, and in the square of the Ephraim gate. The whole community that returned from the captivity made booths and dwelt in the booths. The Israelites had not done so from the days of Joshua son of Nun to that day, and there was very great rejoicing. He read from the scroll of the teaching of God each day, from the first to the last day. They celebrated the festival 7 days, and there was a solemn gathering on the 8th, as prescribed.
Wait, what just happened? They celebrated Sukkot for the first time since the time of Joshua? It's in the Torah. Look, it probably is the case that Nehemiah just said something that wasn't quite true. Like maybe it hadn't been celebrated with that kind of everybody together, right? Don't think that they didn't celebrate it at all. Like, don't read it that way. Well, that's definitely the way we traditionally read it, which is no, they definitely celebrate Sukkot, but not with everybody together all at one place. Like everybody celebrating Sukkot. Well, that wouldn't have happened since we came back into the land. So everybody did it, and they all did it like together. So maybe that's really what it's like. But it could be, again, just this rededication to the holiday. It does seem, though, that they hadn't been celebrating it, or at least they hadn't been celebrating it like very much. It seems like the people are kind of becoming reacquainted. But to what level? I mean, we know that Solomon dedicated the temple during the holiday of Sukkot, and there was a whole bunch of partying that was going on there. But did the focus of Sukkot for a long time become the temple, and then it wasn't really building Sukkah in your backyard? We don't know. But it really is interesting that as we approach Sukkot in a month from now, we realize that Sukkot's a really important holiday.
Mark, there's also a lot in the Bible about sacrifices, and so they couldn't do their sacrifices without a temple.
Yeah, but that was for the last 70 years. What about for the previous, from the time of Joshua, from 1100, 1150 all the way to 586? For 600 years, the Jews didn't celebrate Sukkot? Did they not celebrate it with a sukkah? Did they maybe just use the lulav and not do the sukkah? I mean, look, any of these are possibilities. But there's something happening here, which is that they're rededicating themselves to this. Look, we read about Josiah. We read about this in Kings, that they celebrate Pesach during Josiah's time, and they say, like, we haven't celebrated Passover like this in hundreds of years. So it seems like there are times that the Jewish people in the biblical period that are not celebrating holidays the way you and I thought they were. Again, it could be that they are offering sacrifices, so they're not thinking about Passover in the same way. They're not thinking of Sukkot in the same way, because they're like, well, what do? We go to the temple and we offer sacrifice. What about the sukkah that we build in the backyard or whatever, like, on our property? What about our lulav? Well, what do I need to do? I made a sacrifice. What are you bugging me about building a sukkah for? I did a sacrifice. So it could be that that's kind of what happened, which is that the celebration of Sukkot with a sukkah wasn't really a thing that they did. But here it's clear that they're getting back to that. They're getting back to it, at least since they've returned. But were they celebrating it in Persia? It doesn't seem like it. It doesn't seem like it. It doesn't seem like that was happening. But again, I wouldn't go to the point of saying they didn't do anything, like they didn't know anything about it. But as they're reading about Sukkot, they're like, yeah, we got to do that. And they did it. They did it 7 days. And then, of course, they did Tisha B'Av. I mean, not Tisha B'Av, Shmini Atzeret. And the 8th day is the day that we finish off with Simchat Torah in our world today. So the 8th day is not the same kind of Atzeret that it was back then, but this is the Uvayom Hashmini Atzeret Kamishpat, as it was the law. So it's very interesting that, again, this is the way that our ancestors celebrated a rededication during Sukkot. And as I mentioned before, Sukkot is always a time of dedication. It was when Solomon dedicated the temple. It's when these guys are kind of dedicating their, not so much the temple, because they haven't really finished rebuilding the temple, but they rebuilt the wall and they rebuilt the city to a point where they're strong enough to kind of feel a sense of security. It's a Sukkot time. And as I told you, every year we have a holiday of Hanukkah, which has nothing to do with oil lasting for 8 days. It has to do with the fact that the Maccabees decided that they're going to have their own Sukkot when they dedicated the temple. And they made their own Sukkot. And we know that because they told us that they did that. The rabbis didn't want to tell us that they did it. They couldn't do Sukkot during the time of Sukkot because they were fighting the Greeks. And so they couldn't offer the sacrifices. They couldn't because the temple had been, in their eyes, I'm not saying their eyes, I mean, it's like they were wrong, wasn't their feeling, but the temple had been literally vandalized by the Greeks. And so they felt that it had to be rededicated, it had to be purified, and so they did that by purifying the temple and rededicating it, and by doing what's called a Hanukkah. That is what they did. That's what Solomon did. That's what these guys did. And that's what the Maccabees did. They wanted their Sukkot holiday, their 8-day holiday. 100%. I'm not saying that as a speculation. I'm saying they said it. They wrote about it in the book of Maccabees. Where the oil story came from, the old Talmud. The rabbis told that story. Yeah, we'll look at it. But yeah, this is it, man. This is the time of rededication. So when we come to Sukkot this year, who knows? Maybe we'll rededicate the house, rededicate the backyard. The backyard. I don't think people are really pleased with the gate, with the gate that was rebuilt. Rosemary, you weren't here when we talked about the gate. There's a playground gate in the backyard that we all kind of found off. Well, you didn't realize it was as permanent as what they did, but it's a beautiful gate, Rosemary. Rosemary, when are you back? When are you here in Santa Clarita next?
I don't have any immediate plans, but I'm sure I'll get back sometime.
Well, when you come back, we'll show you.
I'd
I'll take you out with a it's not quite ready, but I'll take you out on a FaceTime tour, FaceTime tour of the back.
Yes,
area.
I'd love to see it when it's ready to show up.
When it's ready. It's very close. Thought it would be right. How are you know the pet service is easy. Pet service. We definitely have enough room for pet service. I know there's it's gates.
Is that pet service going to be Zoomed?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yes, Michael did it last year. What? Joy. John said, "Oh, joy." John loves his dog slightly less than I love mine, believe it or not. But I have to take my dog out all the time right now because my wife is away again. So yes, we already had our walk this morning. It was a good walk.
He loves that dog.
I love that.
He's
dog.
just
I'm not
saying that.
I'm not. He loves his dog too, right, Glory?
Yes, he does. And he's a great dog.
Mike is a great dog.
Yes, he is.
All right, everybody. We'll see you soon, hopefully, and have a Shana Tova. It's definitely time to start wishing people Happy New Year. And have a good one. Okay, everybody?
Okay.
Take
Shana
care.
Tova, everybody.
Thank you,
Bye.
Rosemary. Thank you,
you.
Judith. Take care. And we'll see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye. What?